Gonna stall them as much as possible. Here we go. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Brony Debates Live. We've got a pretty interesting topic here today, suggested by Mr. Concert Cruizer, who's joining us tonight. Let's get the weekend started off a little bit better than my weekend has been starting off so far. I've had a terrible migraine and not been sleeping well all week, but we're going to turn it around right here, right now. Cruiser, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for picking my topic.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good suggestion. So, what made you want to talk about this topic tonight?
Just basically, we tend to see couples in kid shows, and I'm not quite sure exactly how much of the relationship is worth showing, I guess you could say.
All right, what makes you say that?
I'm going to refer to a particular episode of Blue's Clues.
Okay. All right, so I guess we'll get to that then. And also joining us tonight, we got DJ Skywalker. How are you doing, sir?
Hello. I'm eating mozzarella sticks.
Mozzarella sticks?
They're yummy.
I suppose they are. They're definitely not very healthy for you, though.
Maybe not, but they work for a last-minute dinner.
All right, I guess that works. We've also got WIL-I-ZIN joining us tonight. How are you doing, sir?
Just fine, and I'm eating spaghetti, so we got a theme going here.
We do have a little bit of a theme going. I had pizza tonight, so I'm certainly not one to talk.
We're all Italian tonight.
And all I'm having is just a hungry man.
Yeah.
Bada boopy.
Must all fame. All right. So, okay, so, we also got, is Cordero with us yet? Is he ready yet? I don't know if he can hear us. We got a little bit of an interesting thing going on. Cordero is actually live in the studio right now, meaning he's like in the other room from me. But it was a very last minute setup. So we're trying to, we're not 100% sure if he's actually like set up over there, if he can hear us, or if I'm just having trouble hearing him. So that's a fun little thing we got going on right now. Cordero.
Dude, just read off your Patreon names.
I guess I will. But while we're waiting for him, I will do exactly that. Big thanks to my very generous supporters on Patreon, especially on the $10 and up tier, such as Cordero, who seems to be still... Well, he's showing up, but I'm not hearing his mic. Anyway, there's Cordero, there's Princess Heather Blossom, whose microphone he's using, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden Girder, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who's joining us tonight, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden McManx, Easy Mode Gamer, Sophia, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Please check out all their links in the description.
Is that? Oh yeah, Yeti.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Now we're hearing you. Just in time, too. How are you doing tonight, Cordero?
Really good. Cordero couldn't make it tonight, so I came on the stream. What's up, guys? It's me, Heather Blossom.
Finally, some revenge for that time I went to Everfree Northwest and left you guys in charge. Alrighty then. So, let's
Technically never did hire him back.
that is true, but I don't need your approval to do anything.
We've called security, but he just won't leave.
We called security, but they proved to be ineffective. Anyway, Cruiser, tell us now that we got Cordero back on the air with us.
I heard him.
Okay,
I heard him.
So yeah, tell us about Blue's Clues.
This notorious Pride Parade thing they did.
Okay, so what was wrong with that exactly?
I don't think you need to be telling kids your favorite sexual preferences. These are like 5-year-olds.
Okay, so that's what inspired the topic for whether or not romance in kids shows is appropriate.
Not just that, but also there was, as much as I like the show, The Dragon Prince, they did in fact have, they do have same-sex couples on this show, but it's not really quite specified, at least from what I'm seeing on Netflix, on the age range for something like this. There was also the Owl House. So I'm not entirely sure, like, what's appropriate, I guess you could say.
Okay, so what is the age demographic for these shows?
Honestly, I always thought the Owl House was like maybe 10 and up.
Okay.
Perhaps maybe a bit younger. Blue's Clues, we all know that's like babies. Okay.
Toddlers.
Yeah. Something like the Dragon Prince. Honestly, I thought maybe that was like for like 15-year-olds, but I could be wrong. Honestly, it seems like they might be trying to reach a younger crowd.
I'd say 12 and up. Sort of like the same age when kids get into like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars and the like.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we had various couples all throughout MLP as well, but they never went too far. MLP, like regardless if it was hetero or same sex, they were at least quaint about it. But it seems like with all these other shows, they are really over the they're really on the line here.
So something I would like to state before we really before I open up the floor is that because of Friendship is Magic, the whole topic of demographics got muddied greatly, in my opinion, because it was a very good show that very easily and in fact did appeal to just about all demographics across the boards, which was a slap in the face to the very practice of demographics as it was applied to marketing, because you would have your the demographics were all split up depending on what you were trying to accomplish. They were split up by gender, they were split up by age, they were split up by race, any number of things like that. And Friendship is Magic showed that the demographics could all be brought together, unified, and that they didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So with that being said, let's go around the table here and get some additional thoughts. So DJ, what do you think about the topic? Give us your broad sense of the topic. Is romance appropriate in children's entertainment? And we'll work from there.
This is going to be worded a little weird, but I believe there's a place for it, but it needs heavy subtlety and can't be overt.
Okay. And why is that?
It's a harder aspect, in my opinion, for younger media to tackle properly, because kids, speaking from personal experience when I was younger, it's a very, pun not intended, romanticized version to kids what they're going to see for romance. It's not going to process quite as well, and that can easily be taken advantage of.
Okay. In what ways can it be taken advantage of, do you think?
How to word this? I believe it can be used to try and push kids towards romance sooner than they should be looking for it. No matter which direction. I'm trying to cover that.
Whether heterosexual or homosexual?
Yes.
Okay.
Because speaking from personal experience, I ended up being a bit of a shipper as a younger kid, and that kind of, I'd say, colored my expectation for shows where romance started appearing almost everywhere, to the point where I started to think maybe it wasn't needed in some places, and probably could have done without the romance aspect.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or should we go down the line?
I'd say let the others speak for now.
All right, Cordero, what do you think about the topic? Is romance appropriate in kids shows?
All right, looks like I'm the liberal asshole in this stream this week. That's a new one. Yeah, I would say that romance in kids shows doesn't need to be any. If you're talking about like gay couples or LGBT or trans or attack helicopter in kids show, yeah, whatever you're showing, I don't think it needs to be any more or less subtle than whatever you're doing with like straight people romance. Because if you can show, to me, if you can show straight people doing it, if that's appropriate, you can show LGBT. Because there's this idea that once you show kids LGBT like relationships on screen, there's this idea, and I'll call it a conservative idea because it tends to be a conservative idea, that once that suggestion is out there, now you're required to explain something to your kids, or like all of this explanation is suddenly required. But kids don't give a shit if they're too young to have the sex talk. Kids really don't give a shit. So when you see hetero couples on screen, or the prince kisses the princess at the end of the cartoon, like, mommy, daddy, why are they kissing? Oh, because they love each other. Okay, the kid has stopped giving a shit at that explanation in most cases. And the same would work for LGBT. Mommy, daddy, why are those men kissing? Oh, because they love each other, like a mommy and daddy would. Oh, okay. Kid has stopped caring. And if the kid is going to ask follow-up questions, they would have asked follow-up questions on the prince and princess as well. So, like, it doesn't have to be more or less subtle than regular straight relationships, because it's just kids are just in the same place romantically, and they're more malleable than humans. Than humans. Kids aren't humans, so I won't take that back. They're more malleable than adults are, and a lot of people will be like, well, that's exactly why we can't go into this yet. But it's also exactly why it doesn't matter, because they'll just see something and accept it. If it's in the cartoon, they'll be like, well, that makes sense. It's in the cartoon. And again, if it's just, oh, those two people love each other. So as long as whatever the two people in a relationship are doing is not inappropriate to visually watch, then the implications of what they're doing are not any worse. Does that make sense? Like, just don't follow up. Just, they're in love, and then don't feel like you have to explain to them what lesbianism and LGBT is in the same conversation. Just, they're in love, and that's the end of the story.
What do they do, ask?
Well, like I said, they would have asked about the prince and princess too.
Again, how do you know they didn't?
I think most kids, like, if they're curious, they would have been curious for straight couples too. And then you just have the conversation, because for kids, when it's like, oh, when do you talk about stuff? Most parents agree that you talk about stuff, that the kids bringing it up is a good time. Because if a kid says, mommy, daddy, what's this? And you say, don't worry about that, that's adult stuff. Well, now that's the only thing that's going to be on their brain for some period of time. So it's better to have your explanation than the internet's explanation. So if the kids do ask, then give them a kid-friendly explanation. But I don't think there's a greater risk of the kids diving into LGBT and relationships and shipping just because they're aware that anyone can be a couple, no matter who they are.
Alrighty then. And Will, what do you think about the topic?
All right, well, to preface this whole thing, to start off with, I'm going to first say I'm just going to be talking about the romance. Nothing to deal with anyone who has an alternative lifestyle of any shape or form. For reference, I'm bisexual. I have dated both men and women. So quite frankly, anyone who tries to come on this so you don't want to talk about it because you're a homophobe, they can piss right off. I am trying to talk entirely about romance in children's media and the purpose it serves. Now, let's look at my entire opinion on the whole thing is I'd say it's a fundamentally important part and should be in there. Now, what levels should be in there should be based entirely on what is the age range. If it's younger kids, they should see a mommy and daddy who are very much in love and just understand and work together with each other. Good parenting. Too much of children's media has, unfortunately, thanks to people trying to repeat previous successes, such as the commonality of the dumb father and the angry mother, saying that, I mean, how many cartoons can you say where it's literally just that? The angry mom, the dumb dad.
Yeah.
And there have been ones that have done interesting plays on it, but the point is, it still does that too much. Of the father is always the fucking idiot, and the mother is just fed up with everything and would rather be anywhere else but take care of her children and her larger children. And what I like, though, are shows that show loving couples who work together, who work with each other, who, yes, may have disagreements or even fights or whatnot, And those are good moments to not only because kids will experience that when they have two-parent households, which is still the majority of people in the entire world. They will experience that in real life, and seeing it in fiction is also a good reflection of that, and also helping. To which, dang it, who's that before me? Was that Cordero who was right before me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, you had mentioned about if it was you who said that kids would ask about this if already because they would have seen it with the prince and the princess and whatnot. Well, I'd say a lot of things of what kids pick up is entirely without seeing it on a show, but seeing it from their own parents. And a combination of both is extremely important towards child development. And I think that entirely dependent on the subject of the show and what it attempts to do. Is it just a comedy? Is it just it's just an adventure? How prevalent are the parents, and how important is the relationship to the story? If the parents are just there because, hey, kids have parents, then it could just be, yeah, they're parents. They're just there. Romance, don't even have to even talk about it whatsoever. It's not the focus of the story. If it's about a family unit that's working together and having experiences together, like, okay, I'm going to say, this is going to get a bit older here. Do you guys remember a show called Seventh Heaven?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was about a show about a father who was a minister and wife, and they had 7 kids and whatnot. Yeah, obviously a very Christian show and whatnot, but it was still a show for kids and for adults at the same time. It was one of those family-friendly all-around shows, sort of like a more Christian Full House, I'd have to say.
I was just thinking that. I was going to compare it to Full House.
Yeah, in fact, actually, even there in Full House, Full House is a lot of people love to dunk on it, but you actually had people, people who were in good relationships, people who were in bad relationships, and it showed sides from the kids, sides from the teenagers, sides from the adults. It was an all-around very good, very decent family show and whatnot, and that's when I think romance is important, but in the sense, okay, I would say there's boundaries with any kids series. When you start getting to topics about sexuality and whatnot, I think that is something entirely for the parents and the child to be talking about, not a television show. Now, that's my opinion for child's media. I think the most it should talk about sex is literally just, they made a baby. It was like, how did they do that? Well, they had their ways. Just leave it at that. There are some things media itself should not be talking about to children. It should be entirely for the realm of parents. And then to which then I know the counter argument is always, well, there are bad parents out there. Yeah, well, there's also bad cartoons. Yeah. I would trust parents to raise their children more than I would trust some Luddite over in Hollywood who has never had a successful relationship in their past 30 years and now suddenly are and are now suddenly being Me Too'd. Yes, I want this person to teach my kids about romance.
Alrighty then. So, the main topic that Cruizer had brought up was the idea that homosexual depictions of homosexual relationships are not necessarily appropriate in kids' cartoons. What do you think about that?
Okay, as a bisexual man who has basically dated both sides of the spectrum, I can fully say, this is a hot take, I don't think we have not fully explored the psychological and sociological ramifications of homosexuality as a mainstay for child rearing. And a lot of sociologists will claim it's, there's no difference whatsoever, but there's a lot of biologists who will say, on the opposite, that the perspectives and the experiences that both a mother and father provide to a growing child, two halves of the same whole, are integral towards a healthy mind and a healthy person.
If I may add on to that real quick, I would just say that I've seen studies from not just biologists but also psychologists and sociologists that would roughly say the same thing. But a common caveat is often given that both of the parents are what you would typically describe as a good parent in the first place. So whether or not that makes a difference is I don't have good enough data on that.
Yeah. From what I have seen and from what I know about, I mean, this is why I didn't want to get into the whole thing of the homosexual heterosexual, because it's almost two separate, entirely different things. It's like we'd have to talk entirely about How are children reared by alternative family lifestyles? We could get into the problems of polygamy and what it does towards children psychologically. There's an entire documentary series entirely on, not trying to throw Mormons under the bus here, but Utah Mormons who practice polygamy and had, I mean, the children who got out of those situations and the horror stories, they said basically just of how they felt and whatnot. They never felt like they were really loved by their parents. They were just tacked on. But again,
what's the name of the documentary?
Jeez, I'm gonna have to pull that up later. But it was something I saw on History Channel back in the 2000s. When History Channel did history.
Yeah, when you find it, let me know. But finish your thought, and then I want to give it to Cordero, who probably has some counterpoints for you.
Yeah, I know completely. As for homosexual couples being in there, I say, it flips back and forth. I honestly would just say I'm willing to live and let live. Like, I think a great example of what is a good representation of this is the two aunts in My Little Pony, where Scootaloo's aunts, who are obviously dating or married or something. Or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now that's not two aunts on the same family tree who are dating. They are just both her aunts because they're connected somehow. That would we don't have a name for that specific happenstance.
It's called we don't syndrome.
Yeah. Well, long story short, the problem is though when you do bring it up, it is as something as a bisexual man that unfortunately a lot of people in the alternative lifestyle community don't like hearing is the fact is we are a minority still. We always will be a minority. A vast, major, significant, large majority of the world is heterosexual and straight. And this is pretty much how it will be because it is a biological need, urge, and just a natural part of it. I mean, it's like, yeah, I know. I'm weird. I'm a little weird. Like guys and girls. How I am. How we got here, that's another story entirely. But the point is that it will always be different. And that doesn't mean it has to be bad. I mean, the entire, look, I grew up during the 90s. I got to see the entire societal shift between every gay person has AIDS to as long as you just marry and don't put your stuff on me and you just live and let live, we can get along. Which is what it's supposed to be. As Americans, we're supposed to live and let live. As long as you aren't hurting other people and you're consenting adults, fine.
So I'm gonna cut you there because it's been a few minutes.
I know I went too far on this, and because that's the problem. No, that's fine. I apologize.
I've gone longer.
All right, so I imagine that sort of flies in the face of what Cordero was saying. So Cordero, what do you think about all that really?
First of all, clearly the first gay couple on television was Uncle Joey and Uncle Jesse in Full House. Fight me.
Nope, I'm not.
Clearly implied. Also, didn't think I'd be defending Mormons tonight. It's probably covered in the documentary, but the sect of Mormons, SECT, the sect of Mormons that is polygamous, has been a tiny, small minority of Mormonism for like more than a century. Like mainstream Mormonism broke off from polygamy in like the 19th century.
You're right. I want to say he's completely right there. I should have specified that it was a specific sect in Utah that the entire documentary was about.
But I agree that sect is horrendous, and the polygamy hurts the. I would agree polygamy hurts the kids and the multiple wives, who get like the young wives who get roped into that to be the second, third, fourth, 12th wife or whatever. That'd be an interesting thing. But yeah, but that's not like hashtag not all Mormons, I guess. Most Mormons are really sort of like regular Christians with a very weird fan fiction text added on to their Bible. But other than that, they can be pretty vanilla in pretty much every way. As far
very
as
close to Amish.
Yeah. Well,
so if I may interject for just a second,
they're not afraid of technology though.
If Will's point at the beginning of my question to him was that we don't know enough about the sociological, psychological, biological ramifications of same-sex couples to want to that he doesn't feel safe. If I'm interpreting you correctly, Will, you don't feel safe giving that a whole lot of representation because we don't know enough from a scientific standpoint, is about what it could cause. Is that accurate? And if so,
I can make assumptions based off of other issues, and the problem is it's currently a subject that is very hot button, and thanks to a lot of other politicization, has led the subject to now be almost taboo. You're not even supposed to talk about it like it could even be a possibility.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous territory and a different subject for another time.
Right, but it was I surmising
you're right.
your point?
You're right. I just don't think it's the subject we're talking about here today, because we're talking about romance. I think that romance in kids' stories, which, again, my thing is, if we're just talking about that, I think it's important, as long as we aren't talking about porn.
Okay, Cordero, what do you think about that ultimate point from the beginning of my question to Will and his response?
The lack of data, and by that, only a few decades or so of like hard data on large amounts of people who are out and openly. Sure. I guess we have lack of, certainly compared to the data we've had on humanity for centuries. I suppose there's a lack of data, but I don't think that that's really relevant to showing it to kids, because saying that, well, we don't know scientifically the impact of these kind of relationships long term on human society and people, well, that to me, that implies that if the kids see gay couples, that will make them want to be gay. And I've always thought that was a fallacy, that seeing the representation is not something that's going to lean your orientation one way or another, or necessarily make you want to experiment, especially at a very young age. Therefore, whether or not there are potential unknown ramifications to LGBT lifestyles, I don't think that there's any reason to show or not show LGBT couples to young children any later than you would show them heterosexual couples. So, if you put it in the media, I stick to my original point that if you're going to put the LGBT couples in the media, as long as the visual contact and that you're showing is appropriate for straight couples, do whatever. Because another thing with the long-term ramifications is whether there are long-term ramifications or not. And as you can see, I'm entertaining the idea that there may be. I actually don't think that that's a significant thing we're going to run into. But even giving that could be a thing, it's rather that could be a thing or not. LGBT is part of the world we live in. It's part of the cultural zeitgeist now. Whether anybody wants it or likes it or not, kids are going to come across that. And I think that if you come across it in a kid-friendly way, which children's media is, forced to present stuff in a kid-friendly way, or at least that's the idea. At least there's supposedly consequences for, showing kids porn on children's cartoons. But you get the idea. There's the idea that children's media is designed to present ideas to children in a kid-friendly way. I would rather them see something that they're going to be exposed to, period, in a kid-friendly way in media, rather than saying, well, we should hold off until they're 12. We can show Prince and Princess kissing at 4, but Prince and Prince, that should be like 12 and older media. I think that's a worse strategy, because then the 4 to 12-year-olds are going to experience that from some other medium that's not going to necessarily be presented in a kid-friendly way, because it's part of the world we live in, whether we want to or not. So might as well give a kid-friendly version of it. If it exists in our reality, there's a place for it to be presented to children in a version they can understand.
Okay. Cruizer, what do you think about what Cordero just said?
Well, I think parents should at least be taking notice of what their kids are watching, for starters.
Bam. Yeah.
I mean, nobody is going to disagree with that.
I mean,
I'm not that
anybody who disagrees with that is trying to groom your kids. Just know that.
Because as far as things that putting that kind of stuff in a kid-friendly way, if I was a parent, I will decide for myself whether or not if I'm okay with my kid watching something like this. Mm-hmm. And because as far as like the whole thing, like with the prince and the princess, or two princesses kissing, a kid knows a heterosexual couple, that they see moms and dads together. That's what they know. Mm-hmm. Now, if they were to see like two men kiss, yeah, definitely like out in a park or something, just go, oh yeah, those two are just goofing off. I got no problem with that. But when you're trying to sneak it into children's media, like this is when I have the big issue. Because like I said, Blue's Clues, I remember that being around when I was a kid. And it was just, hey, Blue, have you seen my whatever? And then suddenly you got pansexual toads parading on screen for 3-year-olds.
If I may interject, the most you had of romances of couples was just Mr. Salt and Mrs. Pepper having a baby, which was a paprika jar, which made no sense. But let's continue.
They had 2 babies.
See? What is this? What is this lore?
What did they have Himalayan salt too? What else?
No,
did they have?
no, he's right. I think there were 3 actually. I saw a meme about this on frickin' iFunny a couple of days ago, and Paprika's canonically like a teenager now, which I guess makes sense. But
Paprika was first, and then there was cinnamon. I don't know if there's a third.
And there was cousin sea salt, mine salt, and
Yes, this is what people come to Brony debates for. Deep Blue's Clues lore.
Let's get into the live action
But
stuff.
then one kid came out white pepper, and Mr. Salt punched the mailman.
As for
I think they call that adobo.
That's terrible.
That's racist.
Okay, what were you saying, Cruiser?
Now I got to refine my train of thought. Damn it!
Your train of thought was that they recently did that whole thing where they had a man in drag doing the gay pride parade on Blue's Clues, a show for preschoolers.
Yeah,
talking entirely about non-binary, talking about transgenderism, talking about all this new age, newfangled sociology stuff.
I would say that is definitely too young to be throwing those concepts at kids.
Good, glad to see that we agree. That we agree on that one. As far as for when it's okay, well, frankly, if kids don't even understand romance, why are you even putting it in the show? I mean, are you really doing this for the kids, or are you trying to signal to someone else here?
Well, is the show for 4-year-olds, or is it because
It depends on the show. Like for something like Blue's Clues, yeah, that's preschoolers. If we're talking something like Sesame Street, come on. Like these are 5-year-olds. They don't know anything about romance. So why are you putting it in the show? If you're trying to do this for the Owl House, which are again, I'm guessing it's maybe for 10-year-olds.
It's rated for Y7.
Young adult, yeah. 7 to 12 is a demographic.
Okay. Kids are not even sexually active at that age. They might be going through puberty, but they don't really know what this means yet. So again,
they've seen a bajillion prince and princesses and romance stories in that age demographic. They're just all kidified.
But they know, they're fully aware of that kind of stuff. And even then, with romance, I think I need to specify here what we mean by romance. I'm talking where you see a very deep, intimate kiss. That's for one. When you see Prince Charming going into kiss whoever the princess is, you see that as romance. If we're talking a quick peck on the cheek, I don't really.
Disney kisses are usually pretty quick. At least they used to be.
Yeah.
They were Italian. They were Italian length. Mwah, mwah.
Quick pecks on the cheek. I mean, that's one thing, but again, I have to wonder, why are you putting this in the show if the kid has no concept of that? It seems like you're trying to signal to someone else. And
when was the first time they saw the prince and princess kiss?
Well,
they would have had no concept prior to that.
I think they probably would by looking at their parents.
They could, but then then it depends on what kids are exposed to LGBT couples, rather their own parents or people they know, versus kids that don't see that until later. Because it's because I brought up the idea of it exists in our world, so kids are going to experience. To your point, more kids will experience straight couples in their life before they'll experience gay couples. But some kids will experience LGBT relationships just in people they know earlier than other kids. And this was the point I was getting at. Is it something that is culturally relevant and is becoming more and more normalized? So therefore, kids will be exposed to it, some earlier, some later than others. And like you said, well, they have no concept of it. Well, then it's very important that when they are introduced to it, it's done, as long as it's done in a way that's not more than they can handle or understand. It shouldn't be a big problem, even if they've had no prior concept of it before. Because you got to remember, adults see things, and we have implications. Our adult brains imply things, and we keep going to logical conclusions. Kids don't do that. Kids are very surface level. They'll see something, and they just see what they see. So as long as what they see isn't a big deal, it'll remain not a big deal, because the 5-year-old who has no concept of gay couples and sees a gay kiss for the first time will just be like, oh, that's new. That's a kiss, but it's two guys kissing. What's going on? Oh, they're in love. Oh, that can happen? Yeah, that can happen. Okay, can we have chicken nuggets now? Like, kids don't think any further. Like, all of these implications of, oh gosh, what could they be exposed to? What will they understand? Can they handle it? Their brains don't even go there. We do that. So even if they are sneaking it in to the cereal boxes in every single 4-year-old show, I just don't think it will do any damage unless you force the child to go down a rabbit hole. Because, like, and I hate to put everything on conservatives, but conservatives have this thing where if they see two gay guys kissing in a kid's show, they're like, oh no, now I have to explain butt sex to my 5-year-old. No, you don't. Because your child didn't picture butt sex when they saw two men kissing. You did that. That was your brain. And it's just, yeah, I already made the point. Their brains don't go any farther. Our brains go further. So it won't do damage.
May I interject?
Okay.
So Will, hold on to that train of thought for me.
No, I got it.
Yes. If I may rant a little bit here to sort of bridge that gap, Cordero, is that conservatives, as we understand and have seen, throughout really all of history, is that LGBT is a deviation, riddled with a lot of very unhealthy lifestyles in it, and we don't want that.
That depends on the conservative. Secular conservatives don't buy into this.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But
this is very Christian religious conservative.
Yes, and and I will give that to you, that I am a Christian. So, but I like to think I come from a little bit more of a scientific and historical standpoint than
right.
most typical Christians. Whether or not you believe me when I say that is completely up to you. But it's not that. Well, yes, there are some out there that are like, oh no, now I have to explain sodomy to my kids. But what it really is the through history we've observed a lot of very unhealthy lifestyles that go on in LGBT. I've seen some very disturbing statistics in on the amount of LGBT that end up committing sex crimes. The STDs that are going on there, and we don't want to risk that being promoted. And if you normalize it, then you promote it, and it's and if especially at such a young age where it's like, okay, I guess I could be that. It's very hard to what's the word I'm looking for? It's very hard to sort of reel that back in, and before they go down that rabbit hole themselves. In recent years, I mean, a lot of the people that have, and actually I was calling this 15 years ago, and now it's all in recent years starting to actually come to the surface, where the people that were saying, hey, we're going to start putting more LGBT in kids' cartoons with the idea of, for lack of a better term, recruitment and normalization, that opens the door for a lot of predators. And they are predators. I mean, very recently, a lot of them just came out and said, a lot of these same people that are writing these shows and writing these characters are like, yes, we want to promote this to your kids, and a lot of them do have raps for sexual harassment and child porn and things like that. And we don't want that exposed to the kid. It's dangerous. So that's where we're coming from. when we don't want that. And Cruizer was talking earlier about a pride parade in Blue's Clues, and I don't give a frick. I will put a hard stop to it here. There is absolutely no reason anything of a pride parade, because even the most tame pride parades I've ever seen are just like I'm pretty sure God smote Sodom and Gomorrah for less than what I've seen at the tamest pride parade.
Oh my God!
I used to live, if I may say, I lived in Minneapolis for 7 years. I saw 3 separate pride parades. It was it really put me off a lot of the whole LGBT community back when I was very openly bisexual.
The point is, no kid should be anywhere near that. So I do believe that there is cause, or at least it's understandable that conservatives don't want that idea introduced to kids when that could be lurking just around the corner.
Well, I didn't see the Blues Clues Pride Parade, but I have a feeling that there weren't any nipple tassels or cod pieces in the Blues Clues.
Thankfully,
Pride
no.
Parade.
No, it's not. But that's step one, right?
Okay. Let me uncouple a couple things, because I hear what you're saying, but all of that about the LGBT community and the unhealthy lifestyles and also the propensity for like pedophilia and harmful behavior like that, all of that is a symptom of LGBT lifestyles being underground and unacceptable. As it becomes common and normalized in the cultural zeitgeist, that aspect is shrinking, because when something has to go to the outskirts, to the dark corners and whispers of society, because it's not acceptable in polite society, well, guess what else lives in the dark corners? All of that other awful stuff. So when something that's really not bad, which that I would purport LGBT lifestyles, not a bad thing in and of themselves, when they've spent decades and centuries pushed into those dark corners of society, that's where the association with that comes from. As we allow LGBT to live in the light and live in regular society and openly who they are and what they are, we're going to find that those statistics, I'm sure they're striking awful statistics that you've run into, those statistics, and I'm sure we already have data, is going down. It's going to go down. It's going to just become a regular thing and uncoupled with that. I'll give you another one. People hate free speech platforms, or like, hey, we're not going to deal with your censorship and all of that stuff. Well, you know what happens to most platforms that become like free speech centered, or you can say anything you want and we won't bow down to the banks and Google and the tech companies and all of that? It becomes a cesspool of pedophilia, Nazi propaganda, racist Hitler stuff, pictures of like poop and gore and all of that. It immediately becomes a cesspool of that, because that's the only place for that stuff to go. So from the other side, from the left, they do the same thing. They categorize like free speech and a lot of conservative viewpoints that are considered harmful now, or you're not allowed to say that. How dare you? That's racist and all of that. A lot of those viewpoints that are being censored, the platforms that allow those to be there, they point and say, see, that's the same place where all of the Nazis and the pedophiles, there's always pedophiles in the bad place, and that's where all of that stuff is. So that means all of those conservative right-wing views are lumped in with all of that. Y'all are doing the same thing to each other. Oh, the LGBT, that's a gateway to pedophilia and terrible lifestyles and a miserable life and dying young and STDs. It's the same logic. Oh, those right-wing opinions that we censor on left-controlled media, well, look at that. Anytime they pop up, there's a whole bunch of N-words and racial slurs and Nazi swastikas and all that stuff. That's why it was pushed into the deep, dark corners. And when you're in the deep, dark corners, you have to hang out with the deep, dark stuff. And that's the unfortunate reality. Let stuff out of the deep, dark corners and allow it to exist normally where it should be, and that association will melt away.
All right.
Isn't that how we got?
We
got drag kids though? Isn't that how we got drag kids? We let them through it. I mean,
and
that happened.
Potentially cuties as well. One thing I'd like to say real quick to counterpoint you, Cordero, is just the idea that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is making you believe he didn't exist, right? In this case, these things.
I didn't say anything didn't exist.
Well, no, I'm not talking about.
It's an allegory.
It's right.
Yeah,
so if it's normalized like that, then it gets a lot easier to get pulled into the rabbit hole by other people. Now, Will had a point a while ago he wanted to make, so I want to hear that real quick.
Yeah.
If it helps, this was actually from The Atlantic, a very, very left-leaning news organization, and it was talking about what the CDC did back in 2013. In 2013, the CDC released results from a 2010 study on victimization by sexual orientation, and it admitted that little is known about the national prevalence of intimate partner violence, sexual violence, and stalking among the lesbian, gay, and bisexual men and women in the United States. It said that there is overwhelming prevalence of violent partners in their lives. 75% had been with a violent partner for women, as opposed for bisexual women. 75% reported being with a violent partner, as opposed to 46% for just lesbian women and 43% for straight women. For bisexual men, that number was 47%, and for gay men, it was 40%, and for straight men, 20%. And this was done. This entire thing was done by the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, which heavily focuses on LGBT relationships.
So don't be a bi woman.
Yeah. Apparently, you will suffer the most amount of things, and that entirely has to deal with talking about women.
Are you telling me straight white men win again? We won again.
No.
Here's some
USA.
No. The point is that there is a prevalent amount of abuse that happens in comparison to their heterosexual comparison, and I don't think bringing things more into the light is going to fix that. That is a fundamental problem with the relationships themselves.
With being gay.
It sounded like
the only numbers that weren't in the mid 40s was bi women and straight men.
Yes.
Like
okay.
the gay men and the lesbians had the same stats as the straights, other than men.
Yeah, the lesbian women were 46%. For the opposite end, the gay men were 40%. And for the straight women, it was 43%, and for the straight men, it was 21%. Again, keep in mind these results were reported on by the CDC, by police reports, by battered shelter reports.
That makes sense.
That's how they compiled all this data together, and it was compiled by the NCAV.
But how do you get the gay couples are getting the worst percentages? Like they're getting the same percentages except for bi women.
Yes.
They're getting very, very simple.
The numbers, however,
the numbers sound like it supports what I'm saying, that it's pretty samey, except for the outlier of bi women and straight men.
Yeah. The thing is, though, even though it is close, it is still a 6% difference if we're averaging it out of here, to which, again, 6%. So it depends on how many we're talking about here. It is still an increase over it.
That's the gap of lesbians to gay men.
But
keep in mind, straight women are in the middle of that.
Keep in mind that for gay men, there is a 20% difference between gay men and straight men.
Straight men, yeah.
Yeah, and then if we're talking about gay women and straight women, there is a 12% difference.
This is more gender biased than sexuality biased, because the gay men and the straight men have the best numbers, period. The straight men by far. So the straight men are 20 and the gay men are 40, and then all of the women, and the women are all the higher numbers.
Yeah, what can I say? What can I say? Men just know how to do relationships better.
I mean, I guess when you can successfully punch your partner back and not die, there's more talking. You know what I mean? Like when both guys are carrying a big stick, like I can beat you up. Well, I can beat you up too. Maybe we should talk it out since we both have a gun.
Maybe, but the point I was just trying to make was that there is evidence of, on the stats alone, domestic violence being higher, and especially higher with a very specific group, that being bisexual women. But then again, we also have to keep in mind how people identify has changed drastically. This was done back in 2013 by a study that was done in 2010. We've had a whole decade and some change, and there has been a lot can change in a decade.
Okay, so
guys, it'd be great to see another study 10 years later.
I'd like to.
Would you trust the CDC right now?
I barely trusted the CDC in the first place, but we really got to move on a little bit here. I haven't heard from DJ in a while. DJ, do you have anything you'd like to add or take away from the conversation thus far?
This is not the topic I signed up for.
I am sorry, DJ.
Right.
You got it.
We're not talking about romance anymore.
This is
we
Brony.
have stopped talking
about
romance.
This is Brony debates. You got to be ready for the rabbit hole, DJ. We've been over this. We'd go down the rabbit hole.
But we haven't even talked about the topic.
We
skipped right into sexuality, which is not romance.
Well, you can
I have
blame
an idea.
Cruizer for
I have a
that.
solution. I have a solution. Is we have talked at length about sex and sexuality and when LGBT stuff is appropriate. So let's move to just talking in general about romance. So now romance is just one topic. When is romance appropriate? Now I'm hearing an echo.
It's coming from me.
To show kids. It's coming from me?
It's either coming from you or DJ.
And how about it's DJ. I think the echo's coming from.
DJ, get your headphones in, gosh darn it.
It was fine.
But since we haven't heard from DJ, would you like to lead us back into the main topic of it just being romance, which again I said at the beginning I was trying to avoid. But
well, I mean the going down the LGBT rabbit hole was Cruizer's idea in the first place. That's what inspired this topic. So go ahead, DJ.
Give me 1 second. Let me put the headphones on and switch over.
All right. I did have other questions, but we'll get in that are roughly along that line, but we'll get into them later. Go ahead, DJ.
Okay, so for romance, for younger kids, personally, I think it definitely needs to be more subtle. The Blue's Clues thing, as we talked about, is unacceptable. That's not really romance. That's a different topic.
Yeah.
But I don't see an issue with there being a gay couple in a kid's show like that, as long as it's not addressed. But the issue that usually comes up with that is not necessarily the show itself, but the reaction to that being in the show, which is usually where a lot of right-leaning people will take issue, is the reaction from media, from Twitter, that scream about every single ounce of it that ever happens, when really, if you want it to be normal, you have to stop caring.
Interesting. Cruizer, what do you think about that?
What do you say? Because my audio cut out there for a minute.
All right, DJ.
He said basically that the only way to make people stop caring about the fact of being different couples, gay couples or whatnot, is for. Well, okay. Did you mean people who support the gay couples to stop caring about what others think, or for people who are being upset about it to stop caring about what others think?
Yes.
You just mean both.
Yes, because it needs to stop having a reaction.
Well,
Okay.
Go ahead.
okay.
We still gotta get back to the topic.
To be honest, I don't think a lot of people actually really do. I think people like to think that others do care. Trying to think of a good way of saying this. Okay, when MLP released that episode where we got to see Scootaloo's parents and we also saw her gay aunts, there was already, before the episode even aired, there were people from the show saying that people were already criticizing the fact that they were having a gay couple on their show. Now, I did not see anybody make a big fuss about this at all. It seemed like they just assumed it was out there floating in the ether and they decided to combat it. And honestly, I feel like if they just didn't even acknowledge it, whether it existed or not, things would have been different.
So
because
you agree with DJ?
That's the point he was making?
If I'm understanding DJ correctly, yes.
It just has. I'm fine with it just existing. It doesn't have to be something that's a focus.
Because that's what happened with the Dragon Prince. There was a same-sex couple. It was two men. They did kiss each other, and this was definitely a kiss of passion. And no one said anything on social media.
Oh, I think that's the dream right there.
And I think that's because no one from the show staff went out to fight something
on the back.
That, and also try to fight something that no one was even giving a shit about in the first place.
All right.
So there's a lot of controversy going around. Like showrunners are kind of starting shit with it's really important that we have represented, and that's why I want to show you. And then a whole shitstorm goes. So it's almost like just do it. Just put it in the show and don't make it too graphic and fuck off. Just do your fucking job, right? And just tell a good kid story. And most people won't care that much. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, so essentially my point is romance is usually fine to me in kids media as long as it's not being used as a tool for something else.
Yeah,
although
that's fair.
I do take some exceptions. Like I'm gonna go back to the Owl House with Luz and Amity, the big main couple of the show with the two main characters. I find it an absolutely adorable couple. I wish it wasn't in the show because it kind of detracts from the story.
What show? What couple?
Luz and Amity, the main character, and her girlfriend.
Oh,
how many times? This is an important question. How many times have we seen a heterosexual couple ruin a show because it didn't fit with the story?
Oh, hell yes.
I mean, that's essentially Romeo and Juliet for me.
Storytelling, yeah.
It's kind of just shoehorned in there. Okay. We can all name at least one show where just why is this and it always comes out of left field, either because some writer had a fan fiction they wanted to make canon, or they thought the fans wanted it, or
Star
perhaps
versus
even
the forces of evil,
or perhaps even
the
the corporate entities came down and said, hey, we need romance for God knows what reason. Those marketing people are always so brain dead.
Marco and Star is the worst canon ship in the history of cartoons. It's so bad. It's so forced. And they spent so much of the show being like, no, they're just going to be friends. And that's their dynamic, and that's fine. And they even had their own relationships, canon relationships that they were getting into. And that was fine. But the show was like, no, they're destined to be together. We have to put them together. And they started fanficking their own show up and fucked up Star Versus by forcing Marco and Star back together.
They did Marco's girlfriend so dirty. The warrior
one.
Oh,
so dirty, Jackie.
No, not Jackie. The warrior one with the hair, with the big hair. She usually had her ex sitting on her head.
Oh yeah. That was a possible Marco ship too. If you moved on from Jackie, that was better. Yeah,
It was starting, and then they just dropped it.
They just dropped it. Yeah, like if you're not going to do Jackie, that was a good one too. And Star with Demon Kid, I always forget his name. That was a great couple.
Tom.
That was a fantastic, very well done.
What was worse about Marco's is they dropped it off screen.
Yeah,
it was a throwaway line in the next episode.
Yeah,
like, guys,
we're just friends. Just friends.
Great. You even got rid of the Blood Moon crap from the first season.
Oh, I'm banning Malik Muhammad. He put Starco with a bunch of stars and heart star face. You're banned, Muhammad.
Oh, frick! And you're on Heather's account with the mod privileges. Oh no!
Yes. He's been posting Azure this whole time.
I've noticed, and I've been debating on whether or not I should call him out. But
for the record, I haven't banned anyone. I've just told people I banned them and then did nothing.
Yeah, I know. Which is the best way to go about it.
Yes. But I think the reason that usually happens is, to me, it's because it's usually a Y7 show where the romance is almost always going to feel forced. Like, crushes I can get, but oftentimes it's going to go into like they're like mates for life or whatever bull crap. And it's like, guys, you had a fine story. This wasn't necessary. You kind of detracting from what you were building.
We can certainly, I can come up with a couple of examples where it went the other direction, where early on they tried to establish some sort of relationship and then just scrapped it entirely. And the two that always come straight to my head are Ed and Nettie. In the first few episodes of Ed and Nettie, it was like every time Double D laid eyes on what's her face, Sarah.
Naz.
Naz.
Not Sarah. Not Sarah.
No one likes Sarah. It was Sarah. I know for a fact it was Sarah. And every time Double D laid eyes on Sarah for the first
Brony, Sarah was Ed's little sister.
I know. Yeah. I know what I'm saying. Okay, he would get hearts in his eyes every time he looked at Sarah for like the first 3 to 10 episodes, something like that, and then that just got dropped, and that's better that was a lot better because
no idea what you're talking about.
Then you haven't watched.
I'd have to rewatch the beginning episodes of Ed and Nettie because I don't remember that.
I remember it quite clearly. Now, they substituted it later on for Naz for like 2 episodes, but for the most part, that was just slapstick all the way through. They did the same thing with SpongeBob when Sandy first got introduced, and he was trying to impress Sandy. And even the showrunners were like, yeah, we thought about taking that in a romantic direction initially, and then just dropped it. And that would have been probably the cringiest thing to ever happen in kids' cartoons if SpongeBob tried to hook up with Sandy.
I think the one that always comes to mind, sadly, is anime, and that's specifically with Pokemon. I think that was the start of my early childhood shipping career, especially with Ash and Misty in the Orange Islands League, where they heavily pushed that, mainly in the English dub. I know the Japanese had some of it, but the English dub went heavy on the shipping in that season.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, sorry. Ash May for life. Sorry. Not sorry.
You are wrong, sir. It is Ash Serena.
Anyway, no, I think actually, Cruiser, if I'm right, Cruiser, you went first, right, in this whole thing. You
Yes.
made a point about how it should be, if I remember correctly, your point was that it shouldn't be a focus, right, because it could be done badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think actually that is a good point, especially with many cartoons. Is we're talking about bad relationships. The big problem is that now you see it, especially when kids start shipping and everything, because when puberty hits and they start thinking about romance and relationships and all that. A big problem with a lot of cartoons always having the main leads get together, or I call it the shipping problem. Heck, South Park question this: 2 boys sitting next to each other, they must be in love. Bronies, you are guilty of this, of Lyra and Bon Bon. Yes,
Again,
it turned
I
out.
hated it from day one.
And then the show made it canon.
And
But
that's
that
why I'm
actually is
bald
a
now.
problem. That is a problem both in fiction and also in reality, where it's destroying the idea of other types of relationships that are very important towards humans. Specifically, the ideas of fraternal brotherhood have now almost been completely bastardized, thanks to it's like, man, I can't believe how homoerotic this Saving Private Ryan movie is. It's not homoerotic. You're just... There was a quote from Tumblr that I'm going to butcher, but imagine being so sex-starved and touch-deprived that any form of fraternal camaraderie to your porn-addled brain looks like homosexuality to you.
What are you talking about, Butcher? That was almost word for word.
Yeah, the point is, I'm going to be a bit more harsh because if I'm totally honest, I think men get shafted a lot lately.
Did you intend that pun?
Oh god!
Well, there's my answer. He did not intend the pun, ladies and gentlemen.
But it's not just gay couples. It's also straight couples too. Like you said with Marco and Princess Star, it's like forcing people into relationships when it's like.
Excuse you, did you mean Princess Marco and Princess Star?
Whatever. The point is that by something that was just released recently, I'll try and find it again later so you guys can read it on the channel. But more than 68% of all millennials can claim they don't have a single friend. There is a severe lack of camaraderie and funny enough, okay, let's face it, we're all talking heads to each other on the net. Maybe Brony and
Cordero.
Cordero, who
Happened to be in the same house tonight.
Yeah, you know each other in real life, and let's face it, internet
Cruizer.
relationships are very tenuous. I do not expect. How much are these friendships to us really?
Are you shipping me and Brony?
No, God, no. I'm pretty sure Heather would hunt me down and fillet me alive.
Son, I would hunt you down.
Heather would tape it.
Yeah, but he's more scared of Heather, as we all are.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Brony, I can see coming. I can hear the thuds.
Did you intend that pun?
Oh, jeez.
Maybe. Anyway, I think my main point is that forced relationships are especially damaging when it should just be friendships and camaraderie, fraternity, or dang it, what is the What is the feminine? What is the feminine term for fraternal when it's? Is it just
Sorority.
maternal?
Yeah, but
Sorority.
I just got a notification.
Sorority.
I just got a notification from YouTube. This stream is now age gated.
Lovely.
Whatever.
Anyway, yeah. What sorority?
Brony, you sound so sad. That wasn't real. I made that up.
Okay.
You sounded so upset. Everybody, God, you guys should know better than to take me seriously at this point.
Okay.
All right.
That's my point. I think the bigger issue is that romance has its place, but like with the Star and the Forces of Evil example, it can be disastrous and it implies to kids that are very young that, oh, if you like somebody, you must be in love. It's like, no, you could just really like somebody because you'd almost consider them your brother or your sister,
So,
even though you're not blood related.
I've got a question for that. Do we think it makes more sense to get a slow burn for a relationship if there is to be one in the story, or even in the serialization? You know, in season 1 they're friends, and by season 3 in a completely episodic sort of format with no overall continuity. Now they're dating. Does that make more sense? Or does it make more sense to introduce a completely separate character from the friendship dynamic with the intention of being one of the love interests of another character? What do we think about that? Let's start with Cruizer for this question.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. Is it better, jumping off of Will's point of forced romance is bad, is it better to have two characters grow into a friendship over time in the series, or is it better to have a separate character outside of the friendship dynamic that's created with the intention of being the love interest for one of the other characters?
I'm going to say the first one just because Kim Possible did it pretty well.
Interesting.
Yeah, everyone. I'm pretty sure most people are familiar with Kim Possible, her friend Ron Stoppable. They were just friends at first, but as the series went on, they started to gain feelings for each other.
And the movie made it very believable.
And that might be the way to do it, actually. I mean, because to bring an outsider in, well, we all remember what happened with Flash and how fans responded with that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm ashamed of you, bronies.
Yeah, Flash is cool. Flash is a cool guy. Like, I don't know why. I like Flash hate as a meme. It's really funny to meme Flash hate, but the people who are like dead serious, like F that guy, it's like, come on, he's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with Flash.
He's inoffensive. That's his worst trait.
Yeah, right. Yeah, his worst trait is being boring. He literally never did anything wrong, except ask Sunset Shimmer to step on him via song. That was the only thing he did bad.
Oh, I still remember what you call that song.
Step on Me, Mommy, the song.
I love that.
What? I must have missed that one.
Cheering You On. Go on YouTube and look up Cheering You On from the Equestria Girl shorts. The Flash Century song. So ready to cringe super hard.
Yeah, so
basically, yeah, I think that the first thing you mentioned, I think, is the better way to do it. It actually gives people a chance to ease into this new dynamic, rather than just springing it on them.
All right. DJ, what do you think about the question?
I personally lean towards the slow burn as well, because from a story and character standpoint, it makes more sense for it to happen over time, as well as for the audience to get to know the characters, to understand the characters, to the point where the audience can actually see them being a couple or not, to see if they actually have that kind of dynamic. Unless you're a shipper and you're going to see that no matter what. And in that case, good on you for your headcanons, but please don't interfere with the show canon and harass the writers.
Yeah, that's a real problem.
Yeah.
Cordero, what do you think?
Yeah, I like that last point. Do what you want in your own story, but don't mess with other people.
Yeah, but which one do you think is better?
Well, like you said a lot of words. It's like, is it slow burn versus here we go? Is that the idea?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concept of show don't tell. Like, these characters are together now. It's my OTP. Deal with it. Like, that would be telling. Whereas showing would be, okay, let me take these two characters that aren't necessarily a canon ship. from the show, and let me through my story establish their relationship and show you why they make a good couple together, and then make a great story where they end up together. Absolutely, I prefer the slow burn in that regard, because it's just literally show versus tell. If you're just like, this is my favorite couple and they love each other now, like, yeah, well, you're bad at writing. But if you take a ship that I'm like, what, that doesn't make any sense, and you take the time to write a great story with some character arcs, and you put them together, and you make me, you bring the reader along on a journey, and you make them want the same ship that you had in your head, that can actually be really fun, to explore ships you never thought of or didn't even like at first. I like to do that with my writing. Like, I'll start out and I'll have people that hate the ship that I'm doing, because I've shipped Flash Sentry multiple times, and people hate that guy and want him shipped with Hell or something. Like they want him to go away. They want him shipped with the devil, and that's it. And what you do is you just get people to like your characters and like them in the context that you want them to like them, to where you get to the point where you've teased this is my tactics anyway. I tease the ship for so long that even haters at the start of the story, by the time it's time to put them together, you're screaming, get on with it already, because I've set it up for so long, and I've passed on so many good opportunities to finally bring them together, that even the haters are demanding that it happened at that point.
And then you rug pull it right at the end of the series on a did they or did they not, because you're secretly an anime writer.
No, you're a writer on Ladybug is what you are.
I do like to end scenes right where the romance, like touching romance happens. Yeah. I do that a lot, especially in MLP stories, as I set it up and I cook the scene so it's going really well. And you're right at where, ooh, this might start getting steamy, end of scene. That's a classic MLP writing tactic of mine.
And Will, what do you think?
Well, someone's taking their writing lessons from the original author of Love, Hina.
No, there's not enough nip slips.
Yeah, well, okay. Jeez, there's a subject talking about the evolution of the harem genre.
Some of us read Love, Hina.
Yeah. Anyway, my entire opinion on it is that the slow burn is the best, especially if it's a television show over a long time. Now, as at a younger age, and certain people just like whirlwind romances, but I think in children's media, it should be held to a standard of showing that relationships are an effort and a process and a work. It's not just something where people fall in love, or they may have a fight now and then. It's like, no, couples will fight, couples will have problems. It's entirely about working through those problems and, well, communication. I mean, if an example, if I could say, for the problem with rom-coms is they're all whirlwind romances unless they really do a good narration of showing a period over time. But most of romance movies or romance rom-coms or whatnot, it's usually all whirlwind romances. Everything's solved very quickly. I would say actually one that did that, talked about the subject and also did something very well at the end, would actually be 1967's The Graduate. Have any of you seen that?
Nope.
Okay. To put a long story short, basically, at the end of The Graduate, this woman is getting married, and the main character, a guy, is they've been having a will they won't they relationship throughout that sort of thing, and basically, okay, I may be getting a few details wrong here, so if I do, feel free, someone in the comments, to yell at me for getting it wrong. But the details I do remember was that they decide to. She's at the wedding. She's at the not the podium. She's at the altar, and they just decide to book it, both of them. She leaves her husband, she leaves her groom-to-be at the altar. They run away, decide to screw conventions. They're just going to live life and do it entirely on their own. They get on the bus, they sit in the back, they're laughing to each other, and then it holds. It holds on that scene. I
remember this movie now.
And it shows them suddenly dawning and realizing that they really haven't changed. What they've done is an entirely a whirlwind romance, but they haven't solved their problems. In fact, if anything, they've made new problems for themselves
now. They don't have a plan either.
Yeah.
It's essentially if Romeo and Juliet didn't die.
yeah, Romeo and Juliet didn't die, and they're like, oh crap, what do we do now?
Shots
And
fired,
it just
yeah.
and it just leaves it there for the audience to realize that, yeah, they kind of didn't make yeah, maybe they weren't. Maybe the marriage she was getting into was bad, but her running away with him and him enabling it in the same process wasn't a solution either. And that's what I mean by fast burns, whirlwind romances, and why slow burns are important. Because who was it that mentioned Kim Possible?
Me.
Cruiser.
Yeah, Cruiser. That is a great example. I mean, we knew Kim and Ron, got along pretty well. They were friends and whatnot. But it could always just have been a friendship for the longest time. It only blossomed into something over time. And that was great. Because, I mean, we got to see the changing from friendship to romantic interest. And so that's my stance on it. I think slow burns are important. And if it's going to be... whirlwind romances are highly... It's funny, having gotten into self-publishing myself, whirlwind romances / trash novels are one of the highest selling things because it fulfills a base desire. But just because it fulfills a base desire doesn't mean it's good.
Well, yeah,
I'm talking about Twilight now.
Nobody wants to ruin their own life. They'd rather have that wish fulfillment fantasy played out by fictional characters so that they can ruin their lives and they can imagine, ooh, wouldn't that be exciting? Of course it sells well.
Oh, so yeah, Twilight.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh. We could do an entire thing on Twilight and how that's ruined an entire generation of girls' expectations on romance. Remember, girls, if he's staring at you and throughout your window in the middle of the night, that means he cares.
I disagree. It was a symptom. It was the expectations were already ruined. This was just a symptom of it. This was just this is what you want, right? This is what you think, right? Here you go, idiot. Here's your stupid bad expectations of. It was just the displaying of it. It was already ruined. Twilight is just said it out loud.
That's what the sad middle-aged cat lady that was writing Harry Potter fan fiction thought it was supposed to be like.
As opposed to the sad middle-aged cat lady who wrote Harry Potter.
And what are you talking about?
As opposed
Brony?
to the sad middle-aged cat lady that was writing Harry Potter fan fiction that is literally Twilight. She rebranded it and it became Twilight.
No, you got it backwards. That lady was watching Twilight and from that made a fan fiction called
Grey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, don't diss Harry Potter like that.
Well, actually, Twilight was originally a Harry Potter fan fiction, and then it turned into something original.
Right.
So
it's a circle of life.
Okay.
Everything's a derivative of something else.
Yeah. The point is that was not a healthy person that wrote either of those stories.
Listen, if we start talking about derivative works, Silverquill is going to appear and talk to us about the hero's journey and that whole thing. All right.
And we're over time enough as it is, and I still got 3 questions I want to ask.
Owes him money.
Everything is derivative of Iliad and the Odyssey. We're all being copyright struck by Homer, and not Simpson.
Yeah.
Oh,
darn it.
Okay, so here's a question I wanted to go around here. I would like everybody to give one example of good depictions of romance in kids shows specifically, and one bad one, and see if you can summarize your thoughts as to why. We'll start with Cruiser for this.
Well, I already said Kim Possible, and I'm sticking with that one.
And that's a good one.
It is, thank you. And we've already delved into why it's good. As far as a bad one, see, I tend to not dive into stuff like this, but a bad relationship in kids, probably anything that was in Steven Universe.
That does play into one of my next questions, but yeah, let's get through this one first.
I can think of 2 good Steven Universe ships, but a lot of them are bad.
DJ, a good example and a bad example.
A good example. It specifically has to be of like a healthy relationship or just relationship ideas in general.
A positive and negative depiction of romance in a kid's show.
Okay.
Like, what do you believe was ultimately hurtful and ultimately constructive in the grand scheme of culture?
Okay. For a good one, I'm going to go with the relationship between Ben Tennyson and Julie through Ben 10, Alien Force, and Ultimate Alien. That, I believe, depicted a very well-defined relationship between two people going through extraordinary events that can still be seen in a simplistic view, because Ben is a hero. He's constantly having to have his job overtake his personal life, and Julie ends up getting the short end of the stick many times, and Ben is always trying to make things work. Julie's helping along the way, and I think it was a great relationship dynamic that sadly got ruined. But on the downside, going back to Star Versus, that's definitely on the writing aspect, but it also, through the show, they showed that Star and Marco should not be together because of they work as friends, but when they start getting romantically interested in each other, they start to become obsessive of each other.
Yeah.
And that can turn very unhealthy, even if it does have its very cute moments. But it's definitely something that the writers should have strayed away from. And when they did, they had some very good relationships that could have gone into some very wonderful things. Basically, Starco ruined the end of it, even though I still think season 4 was pretty good.
Okay, and Cordero, a good example and a bad one.
I'm gonna do a twist on the good example, and all of mine are gonna come from Gravity Falls, where Gravity Falls did a really good job of portraying unhealthy relationships and why they're a bad idea. So like Dipper and Wendy. Yeah, Dipper and Wendy was bad. Like they were at different stages in their lives. Dipper was too young for her, and she knew that. And the show addressed that really well. Like, hey, this is a fantasy and it's not a healthy thing. And if you experience something like this, you should get over it. And also, Mabel X literally anyone. Like all of the crushes, all of the like girl crushes that she had, every single relationship she attempted in the show was unhealthy because she was too immature for romance, but desired romance greatly, which is both they handled bad young developing romance in a really good way, because boys tend to singularly obsess when they're young and they get a bad idea of romance, and that's bad. And women tend to like obsess with the idea of romance. The object of affection can move around, but the idea of romance is what they're in love with, and that can also be unhealthy. And Gravity Falls did such a good job of showing why that's unhealthy and it's a bad idea, and didn't do the terrible thing of, well, let's just make it work out and have it be okay so there can be a happy ending. No, fuck that. They're 12 and they need to grow the fuck up. You know, the whole point of the show is they're not grown up yet. And even at the end of the show, they turn 13 and leave summer vacation and go back to school. And they've grown up a little bit and they're entering their next phase of adolescence. And it's just, it's so well done.
Such a good show.
Yeah, it's a good show in general. And that was a small part of the show, is the romance. And even that was just done so freaking well. And let me think of like a bad example. Star Versus is a very easy one, and we said it earlier, and then you just went over it just now.
I hate to cut you off, Cordero, but Brony, what happened to the screen?
Yeah, the screen went black.
I accidentally clicked the wrong button. I fixed it already. We should be good.
Okay.
Let me go to a bad ship. I am blanking on bad cartoon ships other than Star Versus. Oh, I guess I can go to Steven Universe. Pretty much anything that's not the two relationships in my mind in Steven Universe they were all bad. Like, they wanted to have some LGBT representation, like we were talking about earlier, and like they were all so forced. Like Lapis and what's her face, Peridot, pronounced wrong. That's my birthstone. It's Peridot. I don't know why they didn't just call her Peridot. That bothered me the whole show. Why is she called Peridot? It should be Peridot. It's French. The T is silent. Anyway.
Oh, that reminds me, Cordero. I had to let you know. I was shopping. I was out by your place the other day doing some hunting. I shot a peridot.
Hilarious. Do you feel? Are you happy with yourself? Do you feel good about yourself?
Yes, I do.
You brought the conversation to a screeching halt. For a doe, a deer, a female deer joke. Fantastic. Top tier comedy. The worst ship in cartoons is you and puns.
Well, it's a good thing. She didn't end up as like, oh well, if I can't have Rose, I may as well open up a pizzeria.
Yeah,
she's gonna need some peridot.
Peridot. There you go. Tisk.
That one was better than mine.
Peridot and Lapis's force, it's terrible, and a lot of the ships they tried to force were bad. Except Rose and Greg was good. They were like the foundational parents of Steven. That was fine, and Garnet and herself, Ruby and Sapphire, was very well done. And there's some of the LGBT representation and whatnot. But pretty much anything outside of those two ships, I absolutely hated. What's going on? It's distracted. It's distracting from the story. Fuck off.
Even Steven and Connie.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll give him 3. That was slow played and done pretty well. Yeah. Okay. You're right. They've got 3. They've got.
You mean even after he proposed?
I don't know. Was it bad? Was it bad after did he propose? Oh yeah, because I missed the last few episodes after he turned 14, but I saw the movie. So I didn't see him propose. Spoilers, I didn't see him propose. I didn't even know about that.
And Will, what do you think?
So you want a good one and a bad one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for good ones, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind, if I'm allowed to be ancient here, the Flintstones, which surprisingly actually was the first time on television to show a married man and woman in bed together.
Cartoon The Honeymooners.
Yeah. Well, basically, the thing is that it had some of the things I complained about earlier about the dad being dumb, but Fred wasn't dumb. He was a man. I mean, everything else was. I mean, and Fred wasn't dumb. He wasn't smart either. He was an everyman. And no, not Betty. That's Barney Rubbles. It's just like Wilma. He shouts it. Why don't I know that off the top of my head?
One of these days, like, Wilma, boom, straight to the moon.
No. They were actually they were a very realistic couple if you look back at it. Yes, cartoony, but still an accurate representation of what a healthy couple is supposed to be. They will make their mistakes. They'll do doofy things. But they'll work through it. And that was a very healthy one. Now, if we're going for bad one, again, I'm glossing over it. There's tons of other good ones too, I could say, but I wanted to make a shout out to a classic cartoon couple there. Bad ones. If you want a joke one, Timmy's parents from Fairly Odd Parents.
Internet.
Those are bad people. Period. And if we're honest, it's entirely played for laughs. They're supposed to be the worst thing ever. So yeah, but if we want, if I may be new, as in with the last couple of years, a relationship that's not between adults, but it is between high schoolers, and it shows a very abusive relationship, and one that is actually very bad with communication on both ends, but especially on the, if I'm honest, the woman's side, who is almost practically psychologically abusing the guy, and that is Amber and Mark from Invincible.
Heard of it, but I haven't watched the show.
I have seen Invincible.
To summarize it very quickly, Invincible, Mark is basically becomes a superhero. He's got superpowers, and he tries to do the classic thing of trying to live a double life. Having a relationship with his girlfriend, helping out at the soup kitchen, doing these other things. But he's trying to balance these two lives. And Invincible actually plays it a bit more realistic of, it's going to be really hard for you to do. And, even his dad, Omni-Man, says, basically, you're going to have to make a decision if this is someone you actually want to trust with the secret of you actually having your powers. Because it's not something you want to give out fully. And that sort of doubt into Mark has him struggle back and forth of whether or not he wants to tell her or not, or whether he should. Because again, their relationship is still very new, and only goes on for a couple months. But basically it comes to a head when they're touring a college campus, and a monster attacks, and Mark disappears, and here comes Invincible to save the day and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And Amber sees this and whatnot, and basically saves Amber's life, saves his best friend's life, and a bunch of other people's lives. And basically, but then when Mark, I'm using air quotes here, Mark comes back, she yells at him for going off and not actually helping her, for leaving her be. It then comes out a few episodes later when he says, when after they have sort of like a breakup, a big fight and whatnot, he comes back to her and reveals, I'm invincible. She's like, and? Turns out she's known for quite a while, which means she knew when Mark went off during that monster attack, and then Invincible came in and saved her life. Yeah. And then she chided him afterwards. She knew that Mark wasn't going off. He was protecting her. He was doing the right thing. He was helping people. He was keeping his identity a secret. But to her, no, the fact that he couldn't tell her was the bigger issue. Yeah. Even though that was still his decision of whether or not. She just figured it out on her own. Whether or not he was going to tell her was entirely something for him to come to the decision to. And she takes that as the biggest umbrage ever, as if it's some gigantic betrayal, rather than understanding that, well, hey, the guy is trying to protect himself, and, can he trust you, Amber? Apparently not, because you are willing to actually bitch at a man entirely after saving your life because he won't tell you something. It's... Yeah,
100% agree. Fuck Amber.
From what I understand, it's a different presentation from the comics. Which
it is. And also, the Amber in the comics was Ginger. I'm sorry, it's just a continuing trend of gingers don't exist to modern culture. Just to replace them with with an Asian or a black woman. Ginger people, the ultimate oppressed group.
So they wanted to put more black representation in the show, and decided to make it the worst character in the show. Isn't that racist?
I mean,
unintentionally racist. You congratulations, you made it the worst.
That's a debate for another day. Can you even be unintentionally racist? But that's
and if there's a counter to that, it would actually be it gets a bit tenuous because people argue how old he is, but it'd be Robot and Monster Girl's relationship. Now, Robot in the comics, to my knowledge, was actually a 14-year-old boy, and Monster Girl is actually somewhere in the realm or is it he's an adult? I forget the ages, but I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly from the comic, because I read this back in the 2000s when I was going to art college, if I recall, they were very close in age. It was just that Monster Girl keeps getting younger every time she uses her powers, and he is kind of hard to figure out his age because he basically was mutated from birth.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. So I got another couple of questions here I want to ask all of us. We're running a bit over time, and then we're going to rocket through.
A bit?
And then we're going to rocket through audience participation here. So what do we think when, let's say we're watching a kid's show, a show meant for kids, and they depict an abusive relationship. Let's say... the best one to always come in the head would be the one between Lapis and Jasper in Steven Universe. So Cruizer, do you think that is a good thing to do or a bad thing to do?
Depends on the age of the kids, to be honest. It seemed like Steven Universe was trying to appeal to a 10-year-old audience. That was the impression I got. And...
That's a blurry one. The show was greenlighted to the 7 to 12 demographic on Cartoon Network, but the audience they got was the young adult. That's the demographic they ended up pulling, and the story's writing changed as it went. Like it got more adult as it went on because it was kind of like MLP. It was adapting to the audience that was watching. So by the time you get to the Lapis stuff, it is adolescent eyes watching this, which I would call the appropriate age for this lesson.
By adolescent, you mean what age?
12 and older. 12 and older. Adolescent, 12 to adult.
I'm fine with teenagers, but as far as still, that's like even with My Little Pony, we never got anything that bad. Everything was done in the realm of fantasy here. But Steven Universe, it was still no, I don't like. Teenagers is one thing. You put that in Boy Meets World, everyone was fine with it. Something that was meant for the audience it was going for, no.
All right. Will, what do you think about depictions of abusive relationships in kids' cartoons?
Really cuts to what they're showing and what they're trying, what is the point of them. I can't actually think of any examples that off the top of my head that had abusive couples as a point of showing this is a bad relationship and something you should know about, because sometimes kids are in abusive, they have parents who are abusive or whatnot, or they know other people who are in abusive relationships. It's a facet of life that is something that shouldn't be ignored, especially in children's media, but the level is the issue. I'm trying to remember, but wasn't there an episode of Static Shock that dealt with this? I don't think it was.
I'm sure they did, considering the dark place that show was willing to start from. I
remember they did an episode on like brothers and how the older brother was manipulating the younger brother.
Yeah.
Static Shock was great. They did an episode on almost everything. I can't recall spousal abuse specifically, but I wouldn't be surprised if I found out it was there. I mean, they did one on school shootings, for God's sakes.
Yeah, that was such a good show in general. Like the whole theme of are you better than the life you were exposed to? Like if you grew up in an underprivileged life, are you destined to be, a bad person or whatever, or can you rise above it? Like that was the whole theme of Static Shock, because he had the same experience as the gang babies or whatever they were called in the show.
Bang babies.
Bang babies, yeah. Well, like he's from the same bad side of town, and he had the same incident of getting superpowers, but they became villains and he became a hero. So it's the whole theme of, can you rise above your circumstances? And the superpowers and the villain powers are just an allegory for growing up in less fortunate circumstances. So really good. That's an underrated ass show.
If I'm completely honest about it, I think it's because Virgil had a much more important superpower, the important father figure. But in all seriousness, no.
Him and Miles Morales, are comics racist? The hero black characters always have a dad.
Or maybe, like we were talking about earlier, you need both.
Yeah.
Well, no. Miles had a great father, and Virgil had a great father, and a great mother too.
Exactly.
It just another thing showing how good parenting is important towards shaping one's morals. But I think that abusive relationships, to an extent, like it should be it should be a conflict that, like anything else, of this is a problem, this is how it could be solved, this is how does it. The biggest thing is, does it fit narratively? Like with any conflict, does it fit narratively? Is it moving the story forward? And that's the most thing I think it should be focused on in any kids show, depending on the age. I mean, when you're younger, I'd say it's almost a subject that should probably be thrown towards what's above Y7.
Oh, why?
It's like 12.
No, Y7 is below. Well, Y is below Y7.
It's Y7, TV14, and then.
Okay, I'd say it's almost something for TV14. Almost. Again, this is gonna come down to a lot of personal taste and whatnot.
What's funny is the rating system does not match the market demographics, because they aim it for ages. That's funny to me. It's slightly different, because I think it's like market demographics is like 0 to 4, and then 4 to 6, or 4 to 7, and then like 7 to 12, and then adolescent. They don't quite overlap the markets and the rating system.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, that's my opinion on it. I think it should, as long as it's used appropriately and serves it narratively, and it's still gonna come down to personal taste. And to which I'd say there's almost no story that you can't tell kids. I say almost, all right, almost no story that you can't tell kids and use as a way to teach kids about important. Not everything has to be a life lesson.
I think I get you, but we gotta start.
Yeah, sorry, I'm rambling.
You are. Cordero and DJ, be as quick as you can, because I still got more questions here.
Yeah, context matters. We said it in previous debates, or even the last debate, I think it was. Context
you
is.
Famously coined in the last debate where you famously coined the phrase "child appropriate sexual harassment."
Yes.
Yeah. That's
That,
gonna
that was said out loud and was probably clipped and will cancel me one day.
be...
Yeah, you can tell a story to children because context matters. And I said the same thing. You know, guns and kids shows. G.I. Joe, yes. First 5 minutes of Saving Private, no. Saving Private Ryan, no. It depends on how you present the material. So yeah, there is a way, and I did say this earlier without saying it. There's a way to show things to kids to make it kid friendly. And like you, so I'm affirming what he just said. Yeah, there's a way to present things to children, and that's the context and the presentation and the artistry of children's medium is being able to do that.
All right, and DJ.
I'm going to build off that a little bit because I both agree and disagree. For something like, what was it, Jasper and Lapis was the original example?
Yeah.
That I would put at 13 and above, strictly because that is told through storytelling, which to kids, if they understand what that is, they could accidentally start seeing signs that aren't there, and I believe that's not the best age. However, there's the static shock approach, which they go at it blunt. It is a blunt presentation of what they are talking about. They are straight to the point. They are, this is how it is. This is bad. This is what the signs are.
Which is better for younger
It's almost
kids.
like a PSA.
Yeah, direct PSA telling is better for younger kids. Well, that's what I was saying before, that it's complicated with Steven Universe because it started as a younger audience show and developed into an older audience show without, announcing it. So I was saying that by the time that they did the Lapis Jasper arc, it was being watched by teenagers.
I get that, but it was still going to be rated for the younger audience,
yes, ostensibly,
which is something parents are going to see first.
Yeah.
Well, by that logic, then we should have seen in season 9 of MLP, we should have seen someone die on screen.
You'd think, but MLP was more subtle while adjusting to their older audience. They're like, we absolutely will not deviate from what is appropriate to the 4 to 12 or 6 to 12 market.
Well, MLP started more girly and went family route.
Okay, seriously, like even my folks are wondering, like, where am I? Can we hurry this up?
All right,
Cruiser.
so let's get into the audience participation segment then. So early on, Peppermint's president says, "Can I ask who did it better, Blue's Clues with the LGBT parade or Arthur's teacher coming out as gay and having a wedding?" I think those were both horrible, and we shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
If I had to pick, I'd say the gay wedding, because at least that makes a bit more sense.
I guess so.
That was probably a softer presentation. Would be my guess.
Something I wanted to talk about, but we're clean out of time here, is statistics, and is what amount of the population the LGBT makes up, and whether or not it's actually worth catering to them in the first place. But that's a topic for another day, and it would have kicked off of the but it is a question that I have, and I'm definitely curious about it. Now, Snowflake also says, someone different with Snowflake. Is enemies to lovers trope appropriate for kids?
That's fine. It, again, depends on how you present it. It's context and execution. Context and execution.
You're starting to sound like a real Catholic there, Cordero.
I guess condoms are evil. Have 40 kids. I don't know.
I don't know about that one. I don't know about the lovers, the enemies to lovers things. I don't think that would be more appropriate for the younger demographic.
I think in a vacuum, just as a raw trope, it's fine. It's pretty common, and as long as because I think the implication is you're going to show an abusive relationship becoming a romantic one is the implication of how it could go bad. Don't do that. Keep it age appropriate, and it'll be fine.
Do we want to be the authority figure that goes, "Oh, don't worry about it, little Cindy. Billy just pulled your hair because he likes you, or Billy just shoved you in the dirt because he wants to be your friend, or something like that." Right? Is that what we're trying?
Well, like I said, that would be a bad way of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that's a whole other discussion that talks about how young boys show affection, and it is through beating each other up, and that's in a completely different discussion. As for the lovers to enemies to lovers, kids, yeah, no, I believe it was actually okay. Someone else in your chat earlier said that probably kids should only be exposed to what good examples are, and then when they're older and more developed, show them what bad examples are when they're able to understand what. Yeah, you need to show what is good first to then show why the bad exists in comparison. Because if you just say this is bad and you have nothing to compare it to, all they just hear is that's bad.
I could agree with that. Moving on. Kamodra Steele says romance is fine in kid shows as long as it's not a yandere type. And Malik Muhammad replies, "Oh yeah, yandere is the best worst archetype." So you guys can just. I mean, y'all can hang out with Heather and just spend the whole day agreeing with each other.
What's yondering?
Yandere is when you're like psychotically obsessed over somebody.
The stalker, I'll murder everyone who tries to get near my husbando.
Oh, so Chris Chan.
Not quite, but I mean, we don't have any good real-life examples of a yandere because they don't exist. Anyway, Herman Silo says, seeing the representation for LGBT in kids shows can confuse kids who are developing, and the flood of support for LGBTQ teens can make it seem trendy and cool to come out or blame problems on others on other supposed sexuality, or blame problems that they have on their supposed sexuality. He continues in saying, it is kid-friendly. Is it kid-friendly to push adult ideas, knowledge of sexuality earlier and earlier, which I will agree with him. There is a trend that I have been seeing in the last 5 years.
And if we're completely honest, if I'm completely honest about it, there is a big trend of it lately, and you say that, and it upsets a lot of people. But I lived through the scene craze and the goth phase and the emo phase. I got to see all three of those of popularity, and currently right now, non-binary / trans thing is the new thing. It is the new popular thing, and the problem with that, though, is that rather than just being, oh, I'm into Edgar Allan Poe and I like wearing black and I like thinking everything's terrible and being depressed, instead we're now promoting basically mental illness to children, and you should never be doing that. And frankly, that's another discussion entirely, but...
Wait, I don't understand. Being a basic bitch goth GF is promoting mental illness to children?
No. I'm comparing them as...
have you meant a goth when you were an emo when you were in high school?
Yes.
Then you should have known the answer to your own question.
I suppose.
I was saying they're trends. People got into them because they were popular, because they were the counterculture. They were into them because it was the counterculture, because everyone else was doing it, because they saw it as a way to express themselves. They saw it as the new hit thing. There's multitudes of reasons, but it was popular. And because it was popular, and let's face it, it also gives people, especially teenagers, power to a young mind like that is not a good thing, because they are not mentally developed enough to actually understand the damage they could be doing with such power, such as
friendship is power. Kids are stupid.
Something here that might prove the point that you're making, Will, is Peppermint's next statement. This Peppermint president says, not sure where it was, but on YouTube I saw a drag queen being interviewed by kids, and it was so pure. And I don't see how that could possibly be pure, personally.
I mean, if the drag queen is just a person dressed up in costume, talking to kids in a kid-appropriate way, it's really not a big deal. The kids don't need to be explained what a drag queen is. Now, if the drag queen is acting, like they're at the club and overtly sexual, that would be an issue. Like, it depends on how the drag queen is behaving and how they're dressing.
Yeah, but I believe you got to watch out for that slippery slope, because it always starts there. It's like, they're not doing anything, but then then who's to say this other stuff that I do isn't normal, or this other stuff that I do isn't harmful, when in reality it is.
Yeah,
Herman Celio in your chat actually said one reaction, abuse. If children experience abuse, one reaction they have is to reject their own gender norms, because Like if a abused girl, she would become a tomboy, or or a man or a young boy who was abused, they'd end up acting more effeminate.
I don't believe that's accurate, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's people would, if they would try and find a way to distance themselves from trauma, and if the trauma was based around their own biological sex, they'd want to avoid it, and that can lead to people trying to avoid what they are, and that's yeah.
Go ahead.
And didn't the person who even started Drag Queen Story Hour got arrested for pedophilia?
Yeah. That's another facet.
Yeah, which is part of the reason I want to talk about statistics, versus statistics and ratios here. But yeah, we're running out of time. Badger Bally says, also in Japan, Sailor Moon has a Sailor Neptune and Uranus who are both a couple, and the target audience there is 12. Heck, the predatory aspect, he also says that the predatory aspect also applies to straight people as well, and it's not exclusive, and I can agree there. When I was studying that for self-defense and psychology, I ran into it too. The patterns that appeared to me had some correlation with LGBT, but certainly not a causation. I saw a much more prevalent pattern in child abuse for people who were abused earlier in their lives, regardless.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now, I saw a much higher. It was a lot more common in people that in narcissists and sociopaths. So someone that was trying to create a power dynamic, and sometimes pedophilia manifested as what we would define as a sexuality, in which but there's still, I mean, if Department of Justice still puts, like, a lot of people that self-identify as LGBT still puts that ratio at about 40% of these crimes being committed by less than 1% of the total population. So that ratio certainly raises some red flags to me, because that's extremely skewed. But as I said at the beginning of the stream, there's some aspects of this data that I'm missing. So I'm not going to speak to that with utter authority. I'm just going to tell you what I've seen.
Yeah. That could be a topic for a whole another stream. The only thing I'll say to that is it'd be interesting to see the percentage of the LGBT population that is committing those crimes, because you said it's like 40% of crimes committed by 1% of the population. Mm-hmm. I wonder if it is a strikingly small percentage of the LGBT community that is permitting those.
And I would bet $1 million that in those, despite that statistic and despite that skewed statistic, we're going to find even more overlap with abuse to abuse and narcissists and psychopaths, basically just on a power trip.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's very. It's only about half the time simply about sexual pleasure. Anyway, all
right, tell a joke. Let's end on a light note. Make another bad pun.
I did want to say, since you mentioned the comment about Sailor Moon, Brony, I wouldn't count that in our discussion, because mostly we're talking American cartoons, and Sailor Moon is primarily an anime. The reason I brought up Pokemon because that was the American English dub that did the shipping.
Yeah, but
the American English dub of Sailor Moon is very different.
I don't draw cultural.
Japan has a very different cultural.
I know they do, but I still think that's wrong. I'm pretty sure morality itself is universal, and subjecting kids to sexual content at that age is going to have the same effect.
That's what I'm trying to say. Sailor Moon doesn't have that, and Sailor Moon is not meant for that younger demographic. It is a 12 and up story.
I think 12 is too young for those themes.
Teenage adolescent story.
Let's see here. User says normalizing LGBT is not the same as degeneracy. pedo or abuse. All
agree.
you have to do is show positive and healthy monogamous gay couples. That again is gonna raise the statistics question to me, but as we keep saying, for another day. But he does want to know, do you guys consider MLP, I'm guessing Friendship is Magic, to be more left or right leaning? I never personally saw it take any sort of that paradigm of what we would describe as Americans as right or left.
Yeah, it was gloriously absent. One of my favorite things about it, you could read into it values of the left, right, center, or wherever, but that's you reading into this utopian agrarian society, what you want to see, what you're seeing out of it, because that's your values. What's one of the best things about MLP is how divorced it was from our world. That's why it's so good as a fantasy setting.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Because I know exactly what it is.
How right and left was Lord of the Rings.
Knowing Tolkien's origins and
doesn't matter.
his religion and
doesn't matter. That doesn't mean what he created.
All right, Cruizer, what were you trying to say?
Well, I know exactly what MLP is.
Yeah.
It's Canadian.
Oh God, that's the worst thing ever. I can't believe I let myself be a brony for this long. Oh no, I'm having an existential crisis here. I can't believe I'm Canadian.
Oh, Canada.
Well, no, Brony, it could be worse. It could be worse. It was made on the West Coast. It wasn't made in Quebec.
There you go.
All right, so thank God, at least it's not French.
Justin Trudeau just walked into the house and he's doing blackface. What do we do, Brony?
Drop kick him.
We move on before this string gets cut off by YouTube's algorithm.
I give
honk the horn. Honk more horns.
Here, take this one, YouTube algorithm. I'm coming to your freaking office. Then we'll see how much your algorithm's going to save you when I show up at the door. Noah Harris says, question for Brony. What is your favorite Greg universe and Rose of Quartz moment? By the time those two got any screen time together, I was long out of that trash heap of a show.
So episode 1?
Yes. Hyperspeed Fox. Friendship is Magic is good because it focuses on friendship and leaves romance to the shippers, and then we bungle it 99.9999997% of the time. And let me see. Here's the thing. If you have an opportunity to ship the main 6, don't ship the main 6. You're an idiot. Paladin Pony T. I'm ending the stream on all my hot takes here. I'm trying to get canceled on Twitter again. Paladin Pony T says, I think Rainbow Dash fits better with Twilight. Both of them bring out the best in each other. I love every episode.
What did I just say?
Okay, yeah, yeah, exactly. What did I just say? And let me give you some old man wizened experience here, because I have lived what do we call it? We called that Twilight, and we didn't call it Twilight Ash. We called it I don't know what we called it. I've lived that ship. I almost got married like that. Let me tell you something. It was not good. All right. Rainbow Dash and Twilight do not have romantically compatible personalities. Even if you take the lesbianism out of it, they do not have romantically compatible personalities. They will have nothing in common. They won't do anything together, and it will lead to nothing but fights.
Opposites do not attract in real life.
Exactly.
Okay. There is attraction, but it being compatible in the long run is not very true.
That's fair.
I will speak from personal experience there, from both parents and also relationships I've been in. It is best to find someone who is like-minded. Finding 100% is impossible. You will never find someone who is exactly like you unless you get a alternate universe reality version of yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
But a little bit like you is good. Paladin Pony T says, Brony Bug, for you, do you think having a girl in this debate might have helped? Well, I'm not a girl, but I'm trans. Did I tell you guys that? I'm transitioning from male to alpha male. I'm starting anabolic steroids this week.
Sir?
I knew exactly where you were going with that. And
something? I did try to get Heather on the show, but she was busy tonight.
But no, oh, sorry. This is
What are you talking about? She's right there in the chat.
Yeah, she's been watching the whole time.
No, that's the only time Cordero's going to successfully identify as a female.
I'm sorry, I was interrupting you, Brony.
So you know what else is funny though? I just got done talking all that trash on Twidash. But I would also say that Rare Jack is an absolutely incompatible ship, and I'm pretty much living that one right now. So. And it seems to be working as far as I can tell, but I'm waiting for the rug to pull out of me on that one too. I'm just when? It's been 4 years? Not yet? Okay. All right, so
I got a question.
Yeah.
Which one of you is Rarity and which one's Applejack?
What do you even have to ask? Like,
I'd like you to admit it.
I'm Applejack. What are you talking about?
He's trying to get you to admit that you're a background pony.
Apples.
Okay, so when was the last time you saw me in any sort of like major collaboration with the other analysts? Yes, I am a background pony. All right, so I think that's a good spot to call it there. I'll give you each 30 seconds. Go down. Tell me one thing you learned. Cruizer.
Let me see here. What I learned was.
All right, he was saving that one. DJ.
Wow.
DJ, one thing you learned.
I learned that it's very hard to get this debate to remain on topic.
Everything is a rabbit hole, and Cruizer, and that was the conversation Cruizer wanted. We just sort of the title of the stream is a misnomer. You can blame me for that. You can blame Cruizer for the topic.
You're over 30 seconds. Move on.
Yes,
You got clickbaited.
Exactly. Cordero, one thing you learned tonight.
Children's cartoons are gay, literally.
Will, one thing you learned tonight.
Well, I learned your guys' different perspectives on it, and it is refreshing because I can't know everything of what everyone feels like, and I can actually. I can't agree with some of your opinions because of my own personal biases and my own perspectives on life, but I can understand it, and I can understand where people come from, and I think that's the important part. The reason I said I was bisexual at the beginning was because, I've had this kind of conversation with other people, and it devolves into basically,
just
accusations of ad hominems.
Yeah.
And I think the important part is to remember that just because you criticize something and you think something may actually have problems with it, doesn't mean you have to immediately... doesn't mean you have the standpoint that it should not exist. Except unless we're talking about people who decide to ship Rarity and Applejack, then we know what the problem is. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, well that's pretty good. Now, thanks everybody for coming out and listening to this 2-hour long stream. I hope you had fun. I hope to get you back here in the future if you enjoyed the show tonight. It's your first time watching. Very big thanks to my generous supporters on Patreon for making my bills easier to pay, and especially those on the $10 and up tier. Those are Princess Heather Blossom, who's technically in the stream tonight, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Sodden, Girder, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who joined us tonight, Rein-Kun, Morningstar Pony Cordero, who joined us tonight, QFlash, Billy Henline, Ultimate Max, Easy Mode Gamer, Sophie, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Please check out all their links in the description. They make some good content themselves. Will just started doing some video game streams. His link is in there. Cordero and DJ each write fan fictions, and if you don't know about Cruizer's music analysis videos, what the frick are you doing with your life as a brony? And if you'd like to get on the show, love to have you. Let's just get you on the Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and you get to hang out with me and all these fun guys and be on the show. And that is it. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless, and say goodnight, everyone.